we have the vehicle movement and smoke dispenser usage example as portrayed on page 24 of the Decision at Elst rulebook, which apparently is one of the more updated rulebooks. So here is the smoke dispenser usage example. It's June 43 and the Panzer 3N, the German vehicle, in C6 begins its movement phase by spending 1 movement point to start. It then spends 1 movement point to enter C5, 1 movement point to change its vehicular covered arc and turret covered arc to D4, D5, although changing the turret covered arc is not a movement point expenditure necessity. Half MP to enter D4 because it's CE, 1 MP to enter E5 because it's going off-road, 1 MP to enter F4 where it attempts to fire its smoke discharger. On the back of the counter, you will find a smoke discharger number. In this case, it is an SD7. So therefore, it needs a dice roll less than or equal to its usage number of 7. It rolls a 7. This does not affect possible future attempts. So if you fail on the smoke discharger roll, that does not prevent you from attempting it to do it later on. And successfully places smoke. Since it is CE, no dice roll modifier apply. If you were CE, then it would be +1, and therefore the 7 would fail. Spends 1 MP to do so, and places the +2 smoke counter in F4. If it had failed to dispense smoke, it would have not expended the MP. It then buttons up, removing the CE counter, and spends 5 movement points to enter G5, which is the hill, 1 MP for entering open ground, and 4 for crossing the crest line into higher elevation, while changing its turret covered arc to F4 G4, placing a button-up turret covered arc counter. It then spends 1 movement point to stop, with its remaining 1/2 movement point considered already spent there also. So it stops at 12.5. It looks like it has 13. It doesn't show it on the example, but I'm sure it has 13, and stops and considered to expend the other 1/2 point there. So pretty easy to drop smoke dispensers. It's best to drop it when you're CE. Obviously, you're going to be slightly more vulnerable, but remember, it's still +2, and your morale will be that of the best quality unit for that nationality. In this case, Germans, it will be 8. So any firepower coming into you will be an 8 + 2. Not a bad chart. And for the attempt to drop smoke, it could be well worth it. So thanks for watching, and we'll go on to the to hit and to kill example using the exact same setup. Continuing from the previous setups example, we're going to use some to hit and to kills. So with those same units, same setup, on page 25, you will see the extended example. And here they continue. Let's consider the to-hit possibilities of the Russian KV in E3 during the movement phase of the Panzer Kampfwagen 3. That starts in C6. If the orchards are in season, the tanks cannot see each other until the Panzer 3 enters G5 the entire way on the hill, because they will all block LOS to a lower level hexes. C6, C5, D4, E5, and F4 are all past the orchards. When the Panzer III enters G5, however, the KV-1 changes its turret covered arc to E4, F3 and fires. It must either change its vehicular covered arc or its turret covered arc to include G5 within the covered arc of its main armament. And changing the turret covered arc incurs less of a penalty. If it changed the vehicular covered arc, it would be as if it's a non-turreted vehicle, which depends. You at least put your better armor on average facing the enemy in case he should happen to get a shot at you at a future occurrence. The KV-1 fires on the vehicular target type, VTT, cross-referencing the gun, the Russian 76L, with a range of 3 hexes on the vehicular target type. Provides a to-hit number of 10. The to-hit dice roll will be modified as follows. +2 for the first covered arc hex bind changed by the ST gun, which is case 8. +1 button up, case 13. It says, note that this RST gun, restricted slow turret gun, cannot fire if CE. So it probably has a thick square around it versus a thin square. Makes a difference, people. Know your squares, know your circles, etc. So, +2 for moving vehicle, which is case 24. In the decision on Elst, it may be different somewhere else, but we're on case 24. +2 smoke hindrance, which is the smoke that was dispersed in F4. For a total of +7. The shot would be the same in the defensive fire phase, assuming nothing else changed. The Russian rolls a 3, color die of 1, hitting the Panzer III in the front of its turret, because the color die is less than the white die. The AP to kill number for the Russian 76 gun at a range of 3 is 13 on the AP to kill table. Subtracting the front turret armor of 6 provides a final to kill of 7. The Russian rolls an 8, 1 greater than the final to kill number. Look on your to kill charts. This results in a possible shock. The Panzer III passes its morale check, which is required when you have a possible shock, thus avoiding the shock. The Russian then intensive fires the KV. He would not be able to use intensive fire versus a non-adjacent unit in defensive fire phase. That's a game mechanic. Don't argue about it. The to-hit number remains 10, but with slightly different modifiers to the to-hit dice roll. +1 button up, +2 moving vehicle, +2 smoke hindrance still apply. Case 8 for changing covered arc does not apply because this covered arc is now focused on him, but the +2 intensive fire does, as does a -1 acquired target because it had already fired upon him, for a total of +6 dice roll modifiers. The Russian rolls a 4, double 2s, hitting the Panzer III in the rear hull, as that is where the attack comes through the rear of the target hex. Because it's a hull hit, it will hit the vehicle instead of the turret area. The armor factor is 3 in the rear. Because it hits the rear, the to kill number of 13 is raised to a 14 for a final to kill of 11. The Russian rolls an 11 and immobilizes the Panzer IIIN. It immobilizes it because it is a hull hit. If it were a turret hit and got the equal to kill number, then it would be an automatic shock. In the advanced fire phase, the Panzer III fires back at the KV. The German could have fired in its movement phase with essentially the same chances, but then you will not be able to place an acquisition counter for future use. So most of the time you will see people firing in the advanced fire phase, so they may obtain an acquisition. He declares he will attempt to shoot heat ammunition, H9, which is on the back of the counter. Know your vehicles before you enter your scenarios, people. Know what information is on the back of those counters, depletion numbers, and what those numbers mean. H9, SD, S, SM, SP, whatever. Check them out, read them, learn them. And this also has a to-hit number of 10. The modifiers of the to-hit dice roll are +4 for turreted, case bounding fire, case 14 rather, +1 button up, +2 smoke hindrance, and a -1 target size because it's a big KV, for a total of +6 dice roll modifiers. German rolls a 5 and just misses, but does not run out of heat yet because it rolled a 5, which is less than the 9 heat value. If the Panzer III had not stopped or not been immobilized, it would have to double the lower die roll because it would have been non-stopped, and that's very difficult to hit. Next turn, the KV-1 fires the Russian prep fire phase. Its to hit number remains 10. Modifiers for it to hit dice roll are +1 button up, +2 smoke, because it's still there, and a -2 acquired target for a total of +1, makes it an easy shot. Assuming the Panzer III survives until the defensive fire phase, its to hit will remain 10, and the to hit dice roll modifier will be +1 button up, +2 smoke, -1 target size, and -1 acquired target, for a total of +1, another easy hit. If it hits with HE, its HE to kill number of 7 is essentially worthless against the KV-1. If it hits with heat, it would have its kill number of 13. On a turret hit, the Panzer III would strike the KV frontal armor factor of 11. And the final to kill of 2 would be tough to achieve. A whole hit would strike the side armor of 8, since the vehicular covered arc is not pointed to the Panzer III, and the resulting to kill of 5 is more feasible to attain. The box around the 8 side armor factor indicates the turret side armor is 11, not the hull. All the boxes and circles are all about the turret, whether the turret increases or decreases in armor value. If instead of using the vehicular target type, as all these shots have done, the Panzer III used the area target type, then its to hit at this range would be a 7, and the to hit dice roll modifier would be the same total of +1. If the to hit on the KV-1, the result would be determined on the 6 firepower infantry fire table column, half of the 12 firepower from normally used for 70mm plus attacks. With a +1, since the KV-1's smallest armor factor is 8, the German would need to roll an original 2 or 3 to affect the KV-1. On the 6 firepower column, a final dice roll of 3 or 4, resulting in a K or 1 greater, would either shock or immobilize the KV-1, depending on whether it was a turret or hull hit. If the orchards were out of season, November through March, then the KV-1 and the Panzer III in C6, back where it started, could see each other at the start of the movement phase. When the Panzer III spends 1 movement point to start, the KV can fire. The to hit is 10, and the dice roll modifier +1 button up, +2 orchard hindrances, for a total of +3. Although the Panzer III has started, it has not yet entered a new hex. And so it is not yet a moving vehicle. Even if it changes covered arc 3,000 times in that hex, it has not entered a new hex, and so therefore moving vehicle case 24 does not apply. If the KV-1 hits the Panzer III, it will strike the frontal armor of 6, regardless of whether it hits the hull or turret, since the LOS enters C6 along the hex spine, dividing the turret front from the turret side. The target facing used is that least advantageous to the firer. The Panzer III side hull armor factor is 3, its side turret armor factor is 4, 1 level up from 3. The KV-1 fires and rolls a 7, color die roll of 4, which means it strikes the hull. Using the basic AP to kill number of 13 provides a final to kill number of 7, because you subtract the armor factor of 6 from the 13. Russian rolls an 8 on the to kill, achieving a possible shock, which is 1 higher than the final to kill dice roll. The German passes his MC, morale check, avoiding shock. Because there's no effect on the vehicle, the CE crew suffers a 2 firepower collateral attack on the IFT, but with a +2 CE dice roll modifier. In this particular case, and most cases, any armor piercing to kill dice roll that does not affect the AFB will also have no effect on the 2 firepower collateral attack, because you use the same dice roll. Had it rolled a 6 or a 7, the 7 would have shocked it, a 6 would have destroyed the vehicle, and still have no effect on the CE thing, so the vehicle will just die. So, pretty silly, but that's the way it goes. The Russian could have declared the KV-1 was using HE ammo, while still using the vehicular target type, with the same chance of hitting the Panzer III. After a hit, a look at the HE and flame to kill tables shows the HE to kill number in the 70 column is a 7, providing a final to kill number of 1 against the frontal 6 armor factor. Impossible to achieve. The subsequent collateral attack upon the CE crew would be on the 12 firepower column. Assuming an original 7 to kill dice roll, adding the +2 provides a final 9 on the 12 firepower column, results in a morale check of the crew. If the crew rolls equal to its morale of 8, again the highest elite of the nationality, in this case the Germans would be an 8, and it pins. It would button up. If the crew fails a morale check, the AFA will be stunned and would be buttoned up as well. Stop and have a stun marker placed upon it. If the crew rolls a 12 on its morale check, the AFB would be stunned and under recall, and it would button up, stop, and have a capitalized stun counter replaced. As far as I know, the only way to get recalled is having your main armament disabled or this casualty reduction on a morale check from another unit. Advanced squad leader, other things may occur, but in starter kit, that's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to be stunned. So read up on your stuns. That's an important factor. Essentially, you're going to be +1 for the remainder of the game. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, this was a pretty simple fire combat resolution with the most simple and basic modifiers that normally apply. Read your charts, read the rule sections that apply, and take those into consideration while becoming better armor leaders for your assisting crews. Thank you very much.